For months, the biggest question mark hanging over the future of Formula One has been Red Bull Racing. As the sport heads towards a massive regulation change in 2026, the team that dominated for years with Max Verstappen's 4 consecutive championships is taking its biggest gamble ever, building its own power unit for the very first time. In partnership with Ford, the newly formed Red Bull Powertrains division has been working behind closed doors, surrounded by rumors and speculation. Many in the paddock have whispered that the team is behind schedule, that the project is too ambitious, and that their star driver Max Verstappen is so concerned that he might be looking for an exit. But now, new information has come to light that paints a very different and very positive picture. Let's be clear, the challenge Red Bull has undertaken is monumental. Team principal Christian Horner recently called it a crazy project, and he's not wrong. There is no crazier a challenge than Oracle Red Bull Racing with Ford deciding to do its own engine. Horner said, "There is nothing as crazy as that in recent Formula One history. It's typical Red Bull crazy stuff to do. For a team that has always been a customer, relying on manufacturers like Renault and Honda to decide to build the most complex part of a Formula One car from scratch is a bold move. They started with, as CIO Matt Cadieux put it, no expertise, no infrastructure, no intellectual property. It was, in his words, a really brave choice." To understand just how significant this undertaking is, we need to look at the history. Since Red Bull entered Formula One in 2005, they have always been a customer team. They used Cosworth engines in their first year, then Ferrari for a season, before a long partnership with Renault that delivered them 4 consecutive world championships with Sebastian Vettel. More recently, they switched to Honda, which powered Max Verstappen to his 4 titles. But in all those years, they were always dependent on another manufacturer's willingness to supply them with competitive engines. That dependency is about to end. This bravery has for a long time been interpreted as potential weakness by their rivals. The assumption was that while established manufacturers like Mercedes, Ferrari, and even their old partner Honda were refining their 2026 designs, Red Bull would be struggling just to get started. However, the latest updates from inside the Milton Keynes factory suggest they are not just starting, they are well on their way. The most significant piece of news is that the 2026 Red Bull Ford power unit is already running. Christian Horner confirmed that the engine has been on the dyno for a while now. He added, "Just hearing that sound is already crazy, let alone whether it's going to be fast or not. So, yes, the sound is on. This is a critical milestone. It means the engine is not just a collection of computer-aided designs. It is a real physical piece of hardware that is firing and running laps on the dynamometer." The scope of this project was initially underestimated even by Red Bull themselves. Matt Cadieux admitted that when they first started, they had just 2 people working on simulations. "What do you need? What tools do you need?" He recalled asking, and actually the scope of digital activity, it was probably 2 to 3 times bigger than what our first guess was. He continued, "Knowing nothing about it, but knowing enough to be dangerous, we underestimated the challenge. But then, as the team built up and more experts came in, we learned quickly." This rapid learning curve is a testament to the team's ability to adapt and scale up quickly, a skill they have honed over 2 decades of competing at the highest level. While the team remains cautious about predicting performance, the fact that they are in what Horner calls the peak stress moment to make sure we can actually make one and get one to the racetrack is incredibly encouraging. This is the language of a team in the final stages of preparation, not one struggling to get off the ground. Their confidence is further underlined by the announcement of their 2026 season launch, which is already scheduled for January 15th at a Ford event in Detroit. You don't set a launch date that early unless you are confident you will have something to show. Perhaps the most compelling evidence of Red Bull's progress, however, comes from the one person whose opinion matters most, Max Verstappen. Amid rumors that he was afraid the 2026 project would fail and that he was exploring exit clauses in his contract, Verstappen recently paid a visit to the Red Bull Powertrains factory to see the progress for himself. According to Red Bull technical director Ben Hodgkinson, the 4-time world champion left the factory feeling very positive. "I think he was impressed with where we were," Hodgkinson revealed. "He was able to see some running engines doing laps. So he got to hear what the 26 power unit would sound like." This was the first time Verstappen had heard the engine that will be powering his car in 2026, and his reaction was not one of concern but of genuine interest and engagement. Hodgkinson noted that Verstappen has a great understanding of the technical side. and was asking lots of really intelligent questions as we went around. He wasn't just a passive observer. He was an active participant, keen to understand the details. What seemed to impress Verstappen the most was the sheer scale and detail of the operation. Hodgkinson said that when he shows people around the facility, they are typically flabbergasted at the amount of detail that we go into. He added, "When you share that detail, their minds blow. I can't quite believe how many elements that we dissect." For Verstappen, seeing this level of commitment and expertise firsthand was clearly reassuring. It suggests that the fears of a looming failure may have been greatly exaggerated. This is something they have never had as a customer team. By controlling both the chassis and the power unit, they can design the two to work in perfect harmony, a level of integration that has been a hallmark of the dominant Mercedes era. The digital infrastructure that Red Bull has built to support this engine project is also worth noting. In partnership with Oracle, they have created what Cadio describes as tighter, faster loops between modeling, simulation, design, and operations. Every part of this process is now owned in-house, which means they can iterate and improve at a pace that was not possible when they were relying on external suppliers. This level of control and integration is a significant competitive advantage, and one that could pay dividends not just in 2026, but for years to come. Furthermore, both Verstappen and Horner have pushed back on the idea that 2026 is a complete reset where their current advantages will disappear. While the regulations are new, Horner explained that the team will use the same people. You will use the same methodology, the same process, the same tools to go and design that car. The knowledge they have gained about aerodynamics, tire behavior, and car development in the current era will not simply vanish. They are strategically using the end of the 2025 season to understand the limitations of their tools and processes so they can go into 2026 with more confidence. So, while the rest of the paddock may have been hoping that Red Bull's ambitious engine project would be their downfall, the early signs point in the opposite direction. The engine is running, the star driver is impressed, and the team is confident that their crazy gamble will give them a strategic advantage they have never had before. The road to 2026 is still long and full of challenges, but the news coming out of Milton Keynes suggests that Red Bull is not just on track, they might just be ahead of schedule. The implications of Red Bull's success could reshape the entire Formula One landscape. If they achieve what many thought impossible, building a competitive power unit from scratch in just a few years, it could inspire other teams to follow suit. The partnership with Ford brings a legendary automotive brand back to Formula One, adding prestige and resources to an already formidable operation. More importantly, Red Bull's vertical integration means they will no longer be at the mercy of engine suppliers, who might prioritize their own works teams. This independence could be the foundation for another era of dominance, potentially even surpassing their previous success with Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen. The question now is not whether Red Bull can build an engine, but whether they can build one that's fast enough to win championships. Will Red Bull's gamble pay off and establish them as Formula One's first truly independent powerhouse? Or will the established manufacturers like Mercedes, Ferrari, and Honda prove that decades of experience cannot be replicated in just a few years?